What's going on, everybody? Locked On Badgers here. Big show today. We're going to break down the newest running back commit and why we think he might have some similarities to some of the Badger greats of years past. We got Justin Julka on the show, loaded recruiting topics, a bunch more on today's Locked On Badgers.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Ryan Herrings here, host of Locked On Badgers. Thank you for making Locked On Badgers your first listen every single day. Free and available wherever you get podcasts, free and available on YouTube. Really appreciate all the support. On today's show, we're going to talk about the newest running back commit. We're also going to get into Big Ten West divisions potentially going away and answer some YouTube questions/comments from some of the listeners. So we got Justin Julka on the show. We're going to bring him in. Thank you again for making Locked On Badgers your first listen every single day. Justin, man, we got some commits since you've been on last. We are going to talk about let's start with the newest running back commit. In-state kid, Nate White out of Milwaukee King, 6 foot, about 175, 180 pounds. You dug into him a little bit. What are your thoughts here?
I really like the pickup. Seems to have some really good, easy speed for him. He's very twitchy. We don't normally get backs that have his type of jump cut ability and explosiveness in terms of moving laterally and through traffic. He's a guy who is very, just go back to a twitchy. Like, we haven't seen somebody who manipulates through a group of people as easily as he does in terms of his vision with how fast he can move. Most of the guys we've had recently have been more subtle. Taylor was quick with his cuts, but they were very subtle cuts. Like, he would rarely make a large cut at the expense of speed, which was a good thing because he didn't need a lot of it. This guy can legitimately cut across the entire defense and, make three guys miss and keep moving up the field. And that's a positive because we haven't had something like that in a while.
No, and he does it in spectacular fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are some broken ankles, some fractured confidence bones left on that defense when he gets done running through there. His start and stop is crazy. I kept going back to his agility, his ability to stop on a dime, back up, find open lanes, and re-accelerate. I think he's a little, if I had to like kind of lean one way or the other, I think he's a little quicker than top end blazing speed. He's fast, but I think his quickness is super unique.
I think he'll be in the 4.5 range that we've seen most of our guys. It's possible he might be a tick faster than that. I think the biggest thing with him, what's holding him back, I think there's legitimate 4-star potential with him. I think the thing that's holding him back is currently his build. He needs to put on some weight. You can't have a guy at 175 pounds starting in the Big Ten. He'll be dead in like week 4. So you need a guy who can have probably about 200 pounds, 205 at least, if you're going to be a smaller back. That's a lot of work for him. 30 pounds of rip, you have no idea how that's going to affect his body.
I don't know if he can get there, to be honest. Like, he's kind of a thin-framed dude, and you don't want him to get too big where
he's tall, though.
He is tall. He's 6 foot, about 6 foot. But you don't want him to get too big to the point where, or let me phrase this a different way. Maybe he's not a bell cow guy. Maybe he's a 10 touches a game guy and you get him in space.
Oh, I would agree with that too. I mean, there's a lot of flexibility with guys like this. And I feel like we've really underutilized or haven't gone out of the box with guys like this. I think you and I have spoken in the past about why are we not taking weight? Like, we could double up a couple of these guys in the backfield on passing downs or whatever. And it gives you so many options. Like, if a defense has to look at it, you fake a pitch one way, come back the other way to the other guy in a pass. Like, how do you, one false step and a guy like Garendo catches the ball to the backfield and now he's got 15 yards, and we just don't mess with stuff like that. I'm hoping that we'll get back in that way. The one thing that I will take from Bobby Engram that I like in this situation is the fact that when we start seeing like the most recent quarterback commit or recruit, I do think we're going to move more towards that position because in the NFL, there is no such thing as a true pocket passer guy anymore. They all have mobility.
Except for Tom Brady.
Yes, well, that's true.
Who will never...
he's effectively on a rascal scooter out there. He just throws dimes.
Except for the timeless one. No, I think we're going to move... Listen, we all talk about it because I agree with you. I don't think we've done a great job of finding space for our athletes. You even go back to like an Aaron Cruikshank. Could we have used him more? Yeah, I think so. I really do. I think we could have used a guy like that in space more.
We
And
have a
this is
couple
that type of
receivers
player.
that are still that way in our current
Yep.
group. So I look forward to hopefully making a jump in that way. And I think that this is a guy who can definitely go in that direction.
Let me ask you this one. Because we're going to continue over the next couple shows, get deeper into Nate White's film. I wanted to ask you while I got you on, because I haven't really talked to you a ton about this, comparing the two. Which of the two running backs in this class, Keyes and White, do you like more?
I like the upside more on White. I think that his skill set is more college ready. That there is, you could see where it will work. Keyes, there are things that like I like what he has in terms of physicality and like physical attributes. There's a lot there. I need to see more vision out of him at the like when he gets like the big thing we saw talked about was he's effectively a run forward, keep going, run forward. There's not a lot of seek the hole, read the line, and find where to go, which is something you have to do at Wisconsin. So if he can do that, he can be great. And I think the guy that you and I were talking about offline on this was Taiwan Deal. There's a guy who I think that he matches up fairly well with. He might have a little more straight line speed than Deal did.
Probably not much, though, to be honest.
Yeah. But the big thing with him is that he's not a guy that I look at and I'm like, this guy's going to be breaking off chunk yardage. He could do it, but he's going to need a pretty clean hole because I don't think that he's a guy that's going to avoid contact very well.
So I'm a little higher on White as well. On previous show with John Garcia, we talked about Keyes, and I talked about him as kind of a high floor guy, which is important. Like, you need good bodies in the running back room. Like, that's not to disparage him. But I think maybe I'm looking at these two running backs, and maybe you paired a high floor guy in Keyes with kind of a high ceiling guy with White.
Yeah.
And maybe even if you take it a few steps forward, and it never works out like this, I get it. But maybe in a couple years, 3 years, something like that, these guys develop, and you have your big play, explosive, shifty running back in White, and you got your hammer in Keyes. So, I like the pairing of them a lot. I agree with you. I'm higher on White kind of in general. I just think his upside's higher. I think he is. Here's the thing. I think White has some special to his game where I don't think Keyes has that.
Well, and I mean, you look at this, and a good comparison is to kind of, and not to put him in this ballpark in terms of actual ability level. The optimum way of looking at it, and what everyone is looking for, is effectively what USC had there for a while with Lendell White and Reggie Bush.
Yeah.
And there's some similarities in terms of skill set. Obviously, those guys are like the ceiling of like what you can get at that. But I think that you look at Keyes and there's some similarities to what Lendell White was. He was not a guy who was ultra shifty. He was beefy and ran through people. And that's what they asked him to do was you be the hammer. And when this guy comes in and he's just going to run past everybody.
Yeah. And of course, Reggie Bush was the ultimate lightning.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go back to the Giants. What was it? Ron Dane and was it Tiki Barber? Their version of it to bring in Wisconsin fling on this.
Brandon Jacobson and Tiki Barber.
Yeah, was it Brandon Jacobs? Yeah, I don't remember. I know Ron Dane was involved in Brandon Jacobs. Yeah. All right, guys. We're going to continue with Justin. We're going to talk about coming up next, the Big Ten West, the Big Ten East. Are the divisions going away? And what does that mean for Wisconsin? Do we like it? Do we hate it? I got to be honest with you guys. I've shifted my opinion on this quite a bit. But first, today's show is brought to you by Built Bar. I've talked to you guys about Built Bar a lot. They sent me the cake puffs, the birthday cake, which is like eating frosting with protein and no limited calories. It's incredible. My kids rated it. I've talked about it a bunch of times. I got another box in and I've hid it on top of the refrigerator, which honest to goodness is only going to keep my kids at bay for like a couple days anyway. The older one has a nose like a bloodhound, but it's a wonderful thing that you can put in your backpack, go to the gym, work out, eat something that fuels your body and you don't feel guilty about. You feel like you didn't just veto the workout you did by eating something terrible. So I encourage everyone to try it. The variety of flavors is incredible. Protein bars with 100% chocolate that taste like candy bars. It sounds too good to be true, but it is not. It is a reality in 2022. We've achieved the ultimum in nutritional balance today, guys. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCK15, get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off your order at built.com. Thanks, guys, again, for making Locked On Badgers your first listen every single day. After you're done here, make sure you go check out Locked On Sports Today. It's the biggest stories of the day, kind of like an all-together sports show. Always available wherever you get podcasts or on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever else you would listen to podcasts and streaming video. And we're going to bring Justin back into this. So, Justin, a lot of news. It seems like a certainty to me. When there's this much smoke, there's fire somewhere. It already sounds like future Big Ten schedules have been kind of wiped off past 2023. I just saw that today.
Mm-hmm.
I think the divisions are going away. The Pac-12 already said we're going to get rid of them. I think the Big Ten is going to follow suit. I got to be honest, man. At first, I always considered it, and this sounds like the cheap way out. I always considered being in the West an advantage. Like at the end of the day, it's just easier road for Wisconsin. I don't want to play the big boys. It is what it is. I've come around on this, but I'm curious your take. The division's going away. A, do you like it? And B, is it better for Wisconsin?
Wisconsin is the one team in the West that I think that this impacts the least. And I'll say this. Our crossovers, because of where we typically finished in the division, were normally the toughest crossovers. We got the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Penn States that normally got dropped in our lap. You know, not to belittle the Minnesota schedules, but these years when they had this good season, they suddenly get, we got Rutgers and Maryland on our crossovers. And it's like, yeah, that's not the same as, you're propping your record up on beating up on the Little Sisters of the Poor on the East side. And those teams are starting to get a little bit better, but it is what it is. And what I think is most likely to happen out of this is I think that it's going to be more likely that we're going to see Minnesota and Iowa getting the Ohio State games, the Penn State games, the Michigan State games, Michigan, they're going to have to deal with climbing the ladder a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that makes it tougher. And maybe for Wisconsin, we end up getting more Michigan State and Indiana and, Rutgers out of it.
Listen, as an East Coast guy, I'll take more Rutgers. I can go to some games Piscataway. I just got to be honest. It gets tiring because I actually think the Big Ten West is a solid conference. It's not a powerhouse. It's not the Big Ten East.
It's far from the worst in Power 5.
It's fine, and it just gets crapped on incessantly, right? And at this point, I'm kind of like, if we win it, we don't get it. Here's the better comparison. Yeah. If you get a good bowl game and you end up playing a 12-0 best of 5 team, you end up playing a Western Eastern Michigan, right? And you win, it doesn't matter. You're supposed to beat them. And if you lose to them, it's a terrible look, right? This is kind of like the West Division now in the Big Ten. If you win it as Wisconsin, it's kind of like, well, nobody really cares because the division stinks. That's a perception nationally. And if you lose, they're like, you can't even win the West, bro. So I'm kind of at the point where I'm just done with that narrative. I think it's a lazy narrative, but it's a narrative that's taking hold and you can't get rid of it. So I'm to the point where I'm sick of that narrative. I'm sick of the discussion. And I agree with you that Wisconsin, over the next 4 years, we're playing Ohio State every year anyway. Mm-hmm. So I'm okay with this.
To go down that rabbit hole slightly, I look at it this way. Literally every conference besides the SEC West is pretty mediocre after. And the difference is the level of respect that a team like Wisconsin gets as the bell cow of that division versus, say, like the SEC East, where it's got Georgia.
That's it, yeah.
And that Georgia was carrying that side of that division for years. Florida would occasionally creep up. How is that different than like Iowa? Now, there's a difference in the ceilings of what those programs can accomplish when they have a really great season. But there were plenty of seasons where we saw a 8-4 Florida or a 7-5 Tennessee team, or it's been a long time since we saw
7 wins was a high water mark.
South Carolina being a great team. So yeah, and you look at the coastal division for the ACC, terrible, which is just awful. I mean, Pitt is like the bell cow of that division right now, and it's like, really? Like, I like
to be
Pitt.
Fair, like the ACC's been terrible outside of Clemson, regardless of division for 12 years.
They've been carrying everybody. Like Miami is the school that should be good, and it just isn't.
Nope. So here's the other part of this too. I'm kind of like, listen, I get it. We were in the West. We play Northwestern. I'm kind of sick of playing Northwestern every single year, right? Like like you said, give me Michigan State a couple more times. Like give me Michigan a couple more times. And frankly, give Northwestern those teams a little more too.
We were building a good rivalry with Michigan State there.
100%.
And it really could have taken off. And then we scrapped things and it completely blew that up. Like I think both teams were benefiting heavily from it too, because I actually think that the national perception with the way those games played out, like that first Big Ten title game,
classic,
with us against them, was like This game was an epic game, and both teams looked really good.
Yep. Was it 44-39, something like that?
38 or something
38.
like that, yeah.
And we only like talking about it because we won it. We don't talk about the Michigan State game before that in the regular season with the stupid Hail Mary. But yeah, like I want more Michigan State. I want more variety, right?
Yeah.
Let me pivot to this. So let's say the divisions go away, which again, I think is happening. That smoke is everywhere. They've already cleared out some schedules. Like it's happening. I can say it without being able to confirm it somewhere. You still need some protected rivalries. Obviously, Wisconsin, Minnesota is going to happen every year.
There are going to be 2 or 3 of those for sure.
What else do you want to see, if anything else, protected from Wisconsin? Minnesota's a lock. That's never going to go away.
Minnesota will be a lock. I would like to see Iowa to be.
Iowa's got to stay,
honest.
right?
Nebraska's probably the third team I would go after.
That's the one I wanted to ask
watching
you about.
them. But I don't know if it's been competitive enough to look at and say we need to keep this going. Because for better or worse, we've been kicking them around now for several years. And I just don't know if Nebraska is good enough to say, hey, we need to give you this. And would Wisconsin be the team that they view as the one that they're going to protect for Nebraska? Because I don't know if it is.
So it's really interesting. Because I agree with you. Wisconsin has to have Minnesota, and I think Iowa.
I think that if you look at it, and this is where it gets kind of sketchy, because Nebraska would probably say that they'd like Iowa because there's no love lost there between Iowa and Nebraska people that live in those two places. And they'd probably say Minnesota.
You think so?
But I don't. I think that's what they would say. It's either Minnesota or us. But I think it's been more competitive with Minnesota than it's been with us.
I think they would rather have us, though.
Probably
just from a prestige standpoint, from a pride standpoint.
I just don't think that if you look at it from a Wisconsin perspective, if we're doing what's best for Wisconsin in terms of the conference, which is I think this is how they're going to look at it. Like, how do we line up to make each team look like they're getting the maximum value out of their protected rivalries?
Right.
And I don't think you can go beyond 2. I think it starts to get kind of sketchy if you start doing that. Maybe you could do 3, I guess.
No, you're right. When you start adding 2 or 3 rivalries, then you get back to the point that we're in now where you're not going to see teams for a while. It's
basically conferences again almost, or divisions.
The thing with Nebraska is it's a guaranteed win every year, and it's hard for a Wisconsin fan to get rid of that. Next question on getting rid of the divisions. Does it help or hurt Wisconsin's chance to win a conference title?
It will depend how it lays out, for one. If we continue to have Ohio State every year, I don't know what it changes other than we're going to be on more of an even playing field with Michigan and Penn State.
Right. Which isn't good in if we're just talking straight chances, that doesn't help Wisconsin.
I don't think it truly matters for our stance, just due to the fact that we're going to probably be playing either Michigan and Penn State or Ohio State and Penn State or Ohio State and Michigan every year. Right. For the most part coming up. I mean, what's the floor there? We get Ohio State and maybe, we're going to give you Michigan State. Right. Or, whoever from that side. And it's like, okay, we're still going to have 2 tough games.
I think you're going to get to a point where most of the divisions are going to go like this. Because imagine the SEC, if you mix those 2 divisions, that would be so much better, right? Mm-hmm. It's so much more competitive if Auburn is now in the mix on either side, if it's just the 2 best teams. I think from a college football perspective, people care so little about divisions that were recently created. Again, this doesn't harken back to 1937, right, where these divisions have been here forever. They're a recent construct. I don't think people care about them. And frankly, I think it hurts the division. It hurts the conference. I'll
be blunt. The Big Ten title game has, for the most part, been garbage. I know we've had we've had some we've had a couple of okay games, looking back at Michigan State, Iowa, us versus Michigan State. We've had a couple of good ones with Ohio State, but I feel like I think you would agree. It was clear which team had more talent on the field.
Oh, yes. Sadly, yes.
The biggest blunder there would probably be us against Penn State blowing that lead, which, whatever. It never should have happened.
That second half was brutal, man.
It was.
But no, I think we're at a point where the East has won, 8 straight. I think they've won all of them since we've gone to East-West. Like, at that point, let's shift it up. I think it's going to be better for the conference. It's going to be better for the divisions. And quite frankly, when and if Wisconsin makes it, or Iowa or whoever, it doesn't become you made it because of this. You made it because you were the best of the stepchild division.
Listen, nobody is going to argue it, and not to have people who are going to hate this somewhat. But if Ohio State and Michigan play a game that's 31-28, and it's they're going to be playing again, would you rather see that or a 9-3 Northwestern team come in, get involved in it? That you're like, this is going to be, they'll play their hearts out, they'll play hard, and they're going to lose by double digits.
Low key, I don't ever want to watch Northwestern play again. I don't ever want to watch any game with Northwestern.
I really like Pat Fitzgerald as a coach.
I actually think he's overrated. I wish
that he was at a better school in terms of infrastructure and everything, because I feel like the restrictions that he has are limiting. But they're much in the same way that Wisconsin is right now. The offense is not doing their part.
Yeah, I think we do that on a future show because I think he's overrated. I think we run down all the Big Ten West coaches.
We'll see. I'm with you on that. I want to see what he does without Hankowitz, because I think we're going to see some massive change there. Yeah. We'll find out how good he is, because Hankowitz has really carried that Northwestern defense.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys, we already got plans for a future show here to chop up the Big Ten West coaches with Justin. We're going to definitely put that off to the side. Coming up next, guys, we have some questions and answers, some comments we want to talk about from you guys, the YouTube viewers. We're going to get into it with Justin. Keep him on the show. But first, today's show is also brought to you by Rock Auto. Rock Auto is the best place to buy auto parts in 2022. It is easy, simple. Their website is super user-friendly. Drop-down menus. What's your make? What's your model? What do you need? And you're going to get exactly what you need every single time at 30, 50 to 100% off what you're going to get at the local mom and pop auto store. And listen, I'm not trying to destroy the local place, but you go there, half the time they don't even have what you need in the warehouse. You're going to take 30 minutes to an hour out of your day going there. You talk to some guy, he's going to punch it up in the computer. Like I said, they might not even have what you need. At Rock Auto, they have exactly what you need. They'll ship it to your house. It's a family-owned business that's been doing it for 20 years, and it's perfect for the DIYer. Gets to your house, you can do it yourself, save money, and save the headache, save the time, because that's the most valuable thing any of us has. Don't waste it going to that local auto parts store and not even getting what you need and paying more for whatever knockoff part is there. RockAuto.com is the place you're going to want to go for all your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now, see all the parts available for your car or truck, right? Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us section so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. RockAuto.com. Thank you guys again for making Locked On Badgers your first listen every day. Appreciate y'all more than you can know, more than you can imagine. Appreciate all the likes and subscribes. It means a lot to me. We're going to bring Justin back on. And now, like I said, we're going to take some questions and comments from the YouTube group. I'm going to kick them over to Justin, see what he thinks. Some of these were phrased more as comments, but I thought they're really interesting. And I really want to appreciate everyone who's taking the time to leave comments, let you know that we listen to them, we like them, I read them. And I want to bring some of your thoughts on here to talk about it. Because, again, it's about building the Badger community, guys. And you guys are certainly involved in that. You're huge parts of that. All right, Justin. First one, Indigo Scout asked, how many of Mertz's struggles do you think have been psychological rather than physical?
I would say that probably 75% of his problem right now is mental. He gets very happy feet, which is him being over anxious in the pocket and not taking his time and sorting through. I think he struggles to process a little bit when he's out there in terms of post snap. And I think that teams toy with him a little bit in that way. And I think that's why we saw problems with him the last year, because he would kind of lose it and then start forcing it to the guy who he knew where he was going to be, who was his first read. And he got better as the season went on. You hope that he takes another step with that, but everything we've heard out of spring camp and everything, I don't know if mentally he's ever going to be the guy who's just like, okay, if I see this, then I need to go here. And I don't think that we've seen that yet from him.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I think it might even be higher. I think you go back to the season a couple years ago where we had to run over to the sidelines to get plays. I think these are all indicators that the mental game is moving a little too fast for him. Like, he's got a good enough arm. We've seen his arm. It's not great. It's not a cannon, but it's plenty good enough. Yeah. I think there's probably
it's an above average college arm. Yep, it's not 100%. An NFL arm, but it's an above average college arm.
Yep, I 100% agree with you. Alien Space, who's been one of the longtime listeners of the show, really appreciate you. Jack Sitchy would be a good coach to hire inside linebackers, high energy, fiery guy. Energy, personality, knows the defense, former NFL player, star linebacker, would resonate well with recruits. You buying either a Jack Sitchy or maybe even a Chris Orr type, or would you rather go somebody a little more established for the inside linebacker spot?
I think we're to the point where that's becoming an elite position group. I love people who want to see former players come back, but you go with guys that can continue what you've had, the trend you've had there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that those guys can't do it at a high level. I think that they can prove themselves before you ask them to do it. There's nothing wrong with that. If you can find somebody, and it stinks that we had the issue that we had in this situation, but he was, if you look at it from what his track record was and everything, he was a really good hire.
You're talking about Sheridan, yeah.
Sheridan,
throw the name out there, yeah.
Like issue that he had aside, he's been a very good coach in his time in his career. I think you can get somebody who is a very good coach, and I think that is becoming a position where Wisconsin could start leaning on it and saying, hey, we pump guys out to the NFL like crazy. If you're going to be a coach here, you're going to get an NFL shot in a few years if you do this. So I think that's a position that you can get an A+ hire at. So I think that would be a risk to take somebody at that level. I'm not saying they wouldn't be good. I'm not saying they wouldn't be solid. I'm saying you can get somebody who you know is good.
Yeah, I agree. I think I love Sitchy, and I love the idea of bringing in Badgers, but I think there is a point of let them cut their teeth somewhere else and bring them back. Like, that is a spot where Wisconsin can hire somebody proven. That's the direction I would like to see them go. Will Chris do that? We don't really know. Time will tell. Next up, from Slash Racing Productions. Again, somebody who's listened to a lot of shows, left a lot of comments. I really appreciate you as well, man. He makes a mention of talking about Minnesota's receivers as being really the differentiator from Wisconsin. Look at the receivers in the last 5 years compared to us. That's really been their foundation. I would agree with that. I'll kick it over to you. Is that really the biggest difference in terms of their passing game being a little better than ours?
Last year's game, I felt that we were outcoached. I'll be blunt.
Mm-hmm.
I think that their offensive line was very good this last year. I don't think it was receivers that had anything to do with that loss. Not that their passing game wasn't better than ours in that game. Morgan is a better quarterback than Graham Mertz. Anybody who has watched the two of them, he's had a season that Graham Mertz. That if Graham Mertz had a season like that, we would be over the moon with how good that he is. And right now, I'm hoping that he can get to being a 15-8 guy. That would be a good season from Graham Mertz this year.
He's done 15 touchdowns, 8 picks. Yeah.
Yep.
I would take that, given what we've seen recently. I will say we haven't had a receiver like Bateman. No. Cephas was good, but he wasn't a first. Was Bateman a first or a second rounder?
I think he was second.
Cephas was a 4th or 5th round guy. We haven't had that dude, which would be helpful, and Minnesota has.
Yeah, I think that. Listen. Weapons are great, but you have to have somebody who gets the ball to them. And they made plays. Their quarterback made plays for them. The issue with Wisconsin has been we have not had anyone that scares anyone at quarterback, truly. Cohen was pretty good. Cohen in 2019 was solid, pretty good, but he was not a guy who you felt could completely take over. Now, he's the closest thing we've had since Russell Wilson. I mean, we saw him in that championship game make some good plays. The problem was, to be quite honest, the differentiator in that game was their defensive line versus our offensive line. And it was both times we played him that season. He did not have time to sit there and pick them apart. And Ohio State knew it. Once they cranked it up in the second half, he started getting pressure on him. And it was like, the plays just weren't there anymore.
Yeah.
But for a team like Minnesota, it's going to be quarterback play. That's the difference. We're better than them at most of the positions. I think that last year you'd probably give them the edge on offensive line.
I would.
I don't think that's going to be the case this year. In fact, I think this could be the best Wisconsin offensive line we may have had in close to a decade by the end of the season.
I'll take that. Yeah. Let's end on this one. I'll definitely take that. Call it the Bosta effect. Brian Collier, who is not a Wisconsin fan. So context, I made a show that said Nebraska fans would kill to be us. Which I think is true. If you look at the last 10, 15, even 20 years of college football production, Brian Collier says, trust me, buddy, there ain't none of us Huskers that wish we were Wisconsin. I want to push back and say Don't you think some of those Husker fans would kill for the last 20 years of Wisconsin football?
When you're on a year-to-year basis talking about firing your coach because your team stinks, I feel pretty confident that you are looking up at most of the teams in the conference and saying that I'd rather be them. Listen, the only thing that they're touting on is their history, and that's fine. On a year-to-year basis right now, over the last 20 years, Wisconsin has been a significantly better program.
That's
it's
a
not
long
close.
time.
It's not close.
And that's a long time.
2 decades. Like this is like the win-loss record there is we've got to have what, a 40-game lead or something like that in terms of wins over that time?
It's got to be astronomical.
Yeah.
And how long, if you were a Nebraska fan, like how long does that mid-90s run matter more than what you're doing year to year now? Honest question, I don't know, because we, as Wisconsin fans, to be fair, we never did have that type of run. So how long does that last though for you?
Listen, you're starting to sound like the old man who's like hearkening back to the days of, I remember when Ronald Reagan was in the White House.
Gas
like,
was
come on.
37 cents.
Yeah. Like, all right, whatever. This is like Minnesota fans saying, hey, we have like 6 titles. Yeah, back when there were like 15 publications handing out national championship trophies.
We didn't have highways.
Nobody cares. If it's pre-BCS, nobody really looks at it and says, all right, that's legit. There's only one. Associated Press is pretty much the only one that people really believed in the last 30 years.
So that's a good one to end on, man. Justin, thank you again for jumping on. We appreciate you. We try to get you on, if we can, once a week, at the most once every other week. Obviously your Twitter's up here, but Locked On JJ, if there's anything else you're working on, or if you want to plug anything.
No, not just bugging you every once in a while to hop on here and
I love it.
Talk some Badgers.
I love it, man. We'll continue to do that. Thank you guys for listening as always. Appreciate everyone who's left a like, a listen, a subscribe. We're over 100 subscribers on YouTube now, which floors me. It's incredible. Thank you for making Locked On Badgers your first listen every single day. When you're done here, go make Locked On NBA Big Board your second listen. NBA draft coming up. We know Johnny Davis is in on that. So a lot of fun. We actually have somebody in that lottery range this year, which is going to make it much more exciting. Thank you guys so much, and look forward to a lot more interviews and shows coming up this week. Appreciate y'all, and that's it. Thank you for listening to Locked On Badgers.